Tonight, Nigeria's political stage is burning with contradictions, power, ambition, and redemption colliding in full public view. On one hand, the EFCC's hammer drops again, a wanted notice for former oil minister Timipre Sylva stirring outrage, confusion, and political whispers that echo through the corridors of power. His aide speaks out, defiant yet calculated, insisting Sylva must honor the invitation when the time is right. But in the language of Nigerian politics, what does the right time actually mean? Meanwhile, democracy takes its bow in the southeast, Anambra to be specific. Chukwuma Soludo's re-election and now formally handed his certificate of return by INEC, walks back into the arena not as a challenger but as a champion of continuity in governance. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu calls it historic, praising Soludo's visionary leadership. A rare moment of presidential applause across party lines, but every chair in politics carries a question: what comes next? And in the southwest, the PDP is in turmoil, in Ekiti to be specific. Party loyalists cry foul, begging Governor Seyi Makinde to intervene before the ship sinks. But across the aisle, Ayo Fayose isn't mincing words. He's backing the APC's Biodun Oyebanji for re-election, dismissing his own party's aspirants as fooling themselves. The drama isn't just about who holds the microphone of power here, it's about who really is directing the political play. From courtrooms to campaign grounds, from re-elections to redemption arenas, and the Nigerian script, or the Nigerian political script, is rewriting itself again and again. This is Viewpoint, where we discover perspectives and embrace dialogue. I'm Odiawa AI. Join us shortly as we not just report politics but dissect the current happenings. You're welcome back. Tonight, one story dominates national conversation: anger over EFCC's wanted notice for former oil minister Timipre Sylva. A former minister, a former governor, a man once seated at the very center of Nigeria's oil power machine, now declared wanted by the same system he helped to build. But the question is, what for exactly? And more importantly, wanted by whom or for whom? Now let's start with the facts. Anti-graft agency, the EFCC, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, says Timipre Sylva is wanted in connection with $15 million allegedly diverted from a refinery project. They accuse him and others of conspiracy and dishonest conversion, serious charges under the Nigerian law. Now, according to the EFCC, this isn't a rumor or media stunt. A federal high court in Lagos issued a warrant for his arrest. But here's where the story begins to twist and twist deeply, frankly speaking, because Sylva's camp, his media aide Julius Bukuru, says the entire thing is a political drama masquerading as justice. He insists that Sylva is not just hiding in the United Kingdom for medical checkups, and that once he is done, he will actually return and honor the EFCC's invitation. But let's pause for a minute here for a moment. Look beyond the statement. In Nigerian political lexicon, the phrase medical checkup, particularly abroad, has long been abused more than the health matter. It's a political code, code for delay, code for negotiation, and sometimes a code for escape. And yet, Sylva's aide insists this is not evasion, but due process. He even accuses the EFCC of breaking protocol, of bypassing standard procedure and turning what should have been a discrete legal matter into a public spectacle. His words, and I quote, "No formal communication was extended to him, no established protocol duly observed, only a sudden digital proclamation designed to inflame public sentiment." Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is direct accusation that Nigeria's foremost anti-corruption agency has become a stage for political theater in time past, as we have seen. But the story doesn't stop there, because beneath this latest legal drama lies a darker, more complex backstory. One that drags in not just the EFCC, but even military intelligence. Just a week ago, reports surfaced of soldiers storming Sylva's Abuja residence linked to an alleged coup plot against President Tinubu's administration. The DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, was said to be investigating Sylva's alleged meetings with detained efforts or officers on their efforts on accusations of plotting to overthrow the current government. Now, no charges were filed, no evidence publicly shown, but suddenly the narrative disappeared, replaced by the current accusation, which has to do with financial misconduct, $15 million missing from refinery funds. And so Boko himself puts it this way: it is curious that what was once whispered as a cool matter has now quietly metamorphosed into a financial allegation. Let's dissect this. Is this a genuine anti-corruption effort or a well-orchestrated move to weaken a man whose political shadow still is looming large right after the Buhari administration? Now remember, Timipre Sylva is no ordinary politician, particularly in South-South. He was once governor of Bayelsa from 2007 to 2012. Then Minister of State for Petroleum 2019 to 2023, sitting at the heart of Nigeria's oil economy under the Buhari administration. That position gave him influence, massive influence over oil licensing, energy contracts, and local content development. And that precisely where this case ties in an allegation diversion involving the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board and also the Atlantic International Refinery. Now, $15 million may sound like just another number in Nigeria's long list of corruption tales. But here's what makes it different. It's not the money, it's the timing. November 6, a warrant has been issued, barely 2 weeks after the alleged military coup rumor accusation. Days after renewed chatter in Bayelsa politics about Sylva's future, and just as President Tinubu's government doubles down on what it calls zero tolerance for corruption. Is it coincidence or a calculated cleansing? Food for thought. Every Nigerian is watching tonight understands how politics works. When a man becomes too bold, too visible, or too independent, suddenly his file comes up or resurfaces. Suddenly he's wanted. Suddenly the story shifts from power to persecution. But sometimes that's exactly how the guilty hide behind political victimization. So what time is it now? Let's map this. 2019 to 2023, Sylva serves as Minister for State of Petroleum. 2023, he resigns to contest the Bayelsa governorship election. 2025, an alleged coup whisper. Now in October 2025, the EFCC warrant surfaces also. Likewise, filtering into November. Every move seems to mirror the other: politics, power, and prosecution. This is the Nigerian paradox, frankly speaking. Every corruption fight comes wrapped in one political smoke or the other, and every political smoke hides embers of real corruption. So what happens next? Will Sylva return and face the EFCC? Will he walk into their office with confidence or traceable documentation, as his aide has actually claimed? Or will this be another long drawn-out saga by lawyers or health excuses and political immunity disguised as illness in the name of a medical checkup? Because the truth is, we've seen this movie before, or we've heard this script before. Different faces, similar scripts. Today is Timipre Sylva. Yesterday it was Desiani Madueke, also another oil top-notch. Tomorrow it could be anyone who touches the oil money, the oil power, or even both. So tonight, as the nation watches this drama unfold, one truth remains undeniable. Nigeria is still searching for a system where truth stands taller than power and justice speaks louder than politics. You're watching Viewpoint. We've unpacked power plays and political storms in the oil sector, but the story doesn't end there. When INEC hands out those certificates of return, it's not just a ceremony, it's a statement, as Governor Chukwuma Soludo and his deputy now stand officially re-elected, a victory President Bola Ahmed Tinubu calls historic, praising what he describes as visionary leadership. But in Nigeria, political chessboard, every vision comes with its own contest of ambition. We'll break that down, the politics behind the praise, right after this short break. You're welcome back. Now again tonight on Viewpoint, democracy takes center stage in Anambra, the light of the nation, southeast Nigeria. It's official. Professor Chukwuma Soludo has done it again. INEC has presented certificates of return to Soludo and his deputy, Onyekachukwu Ibezim, reconfirming their victory or confirming their victory in the just concluded November 8, 2025 gubernatorial elections. A landslide win that didn't just secure his second term, it cemented Soludo's place in the political history of the Southeast. Let's be clear about the scale of this winning. Soludo, the All Progressives Grand Alliance candidate, didn't just win. He swept all 21 local government areas in Anambra State, pulling 422,664 votes to be precise. while his closest rival, APC's candidate Ukachukwu, scored 99,000 plus, and the YPP candidate Paul Chukwuma went home with a 37,000 plus. Now, out of 2.8 million registered voters, only 598,000 to be specific turned out to showcase their civic responsibilities casting their votes. Roughly 595,000 valid votes, only 11,000 plus ballots. These are not just numbers. These are actually verdicts. Verdicts that say, we see you, Soludo, we trust you, and we demand that you continue. Now, let's unpack the politics behind these numbers which I've just mentioned. In a country where incumbency often collapses under its own weight, Soludo has achieved what few governors in Anambra's history could actually achieve. He joins the elite club or exclusive club of the third governor in the state's democratic journey to win a second term. Now, it's not just victory for APGA, it's a victory for political endurance, intellectual branding, and disciplined governance. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. The applause doesn't just come from the home front in Anambra, it also comes from Abuja, Aso Rock. Yes, in a rare show of bipartisan recognition, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, leader of the APC, lauded Soludo's victory as historic. In a statement from the presidency, Tinubu congratulated Soludo for what he called a powerful affirmation of visionary leadership. He said, and I quote, "Governor Soludo has demonstrated that knowledge is power, that academic principles can be applied in serving the people. Under him, Anambra is living up to its motto as the light of the nation." Now, that's not just some congratulatory message. This is actually political endorsement, though subtle, strategic, and also significant. Because in Nigerian competitive democracy, where parties are often at daggers drawn, a ruling president rarely praises an opposition governor unless there's a bigger picture. So let's read between the lines. What's in the moment for both leaders, from APC and from APGA? From the federal level and also from the state level. For Tinubu, this is actually statesmanship, a chance to project national unity and also remind Nigerians that democracy is bigger than partisanship, that competence deserves recognition wherever it is actually found. But politically speaking, it's also strategic. By praising Soludo, one of the Southeast's most respected intellectuals, Tinubu sends a message that the federal government is open for collaborations and that the Southeast must not be left outside the circle of national influence. It's smart politics, soft diplomacy through public praise via the media. Now, for Soludo, this is validation both politically and also morally. A sitting president calling a particular opposition government visionary is more than a pat on the back. It's actually a green light for you to go ahead, a signal that his brand of technocracy leadership has not just gone unnoticed, even beyond his own party, it has gone national. But let's make no mistake, it also raises the stakes high because when the applause is actually fade, performance must also rise in governance. Let's talk about why Soludo actually won, not just why he did. In the last 4 years, the man known as Mr. Solution here has positioned himself as a reformer. He emphasized fiscal discipline, cutting waste, expanding internal and generated revenue within Anambra State, pushing for digital transformation in governance. He leaned into infrastructure renewal from roads, housing, and local enterprise zones. And in a region where economic anxiety runs pretty high, he preached self-reliance and innovation. But perhaps his most potent weapon wasn't just that policy, it was perception. Soludo sold competence in a political marketplace flooded with populism. He convinced voters that expertise can govern just as effectively as charisma. And when INEC certified him as winner, it wasn't just a procedural act, it was symbolic. It was a symbolic confirmation that technocracy can triumph in a land dominated by raw politics. Now, let's not gloss over the numbers that matter most. 400,000 plus votes across 21 local governments in a peaceful poll. That's not just electoral victory, it's a statement about electoral credibility. But here's the flip side. Will Soludo's victory and Tinubu's praise signal a new dawn of federal and state collaboration, particularly from different political parties, or just another political honeymoon that ends in silence? Well, Anambra, as the light of the nation, shines bright enough to influence regional politics, especially with 2027 just around the corner within the horizon, because Let's not be mistaken, every election victory in Nigeria is a prelude to the next. We have the Ekiti elections coming up in 2026. Likewise, the Osun State elections coming up also. And of course, the mega elections 2027. What stands out, or what will stand out in all of this symbolism? A president from a ruling APC congratulating an APA governor with words like visionary leadership, a state election free of rancor, a peaceful transfer of renewed mandate. These are small victories that give democracy its actual soul. In silence lies real story that competence, when consistent, can still command loyalty. That knowledge, when applied, can still win elections. So tonight, Anambra has written its own story, its own narrative or script, another chapter for it in its own democratic journey. One of intellect, endurance, and renewal. We'll take a quick breather, but when we return, we're heading straight to Ekiti State, where political tempers are actually flaring high again. The PDP in Ekiti is calling on Governor Seyi Makinde to step into the last-minute bid to stop what they call a plot of upturn, to upturn their primary election results. But just when you think that's the big story, former Governor Ayo Fayose throws a political curveball backing the APC candidate Oyebanji for re-election and dismissing his own party's aspirants, as I quote, fooling themselves. That's not just some defiance, that's a political earthquake shaking the Southwest. So what does Fayose's endorsement really mean for the PDP's unity and for Ekiti's 2026 political mathematics? We'll break down the numbers, the power play, and the ripple effect across the region right after this short break. You're welcome back. We come again with a story of political tumult, party loyalty, and personal ambition. The People's Democratic Party in Ekiti State is surrounding or sounding an alarm, calling on Governor Seyi Makinde of Oyo State and the national leadership of the party to intervene against what they describe as subterranean moves to upturn the outcome of their recent governorship primaries. The primary held not long ago was keenly contested. Dr. Wole Oluyede emerged victorious with 279 votes, narrowly defeating his closest rival, Funsho Ayeni, who secured 239 votes, while Teresa Fumi-Ogun trailed with 27 votes. Now, according to the PDP's leadership in Ekiti, this victory represents the will of the people, a choice that must not be undermined. Former Speaker of the State Assembly, Kola Oluwole, alongside deputy governorship candidates Deji Ogunshaki, Segun Adeola, and Makanjuola Ogundipe, insisted that the primary was free, fair, and credible. They call out the so-called enemies of the party, accusing them of plotting to override the people's choice and perhaps, as they suggested, sell the party cheaply to the APC. And here's the political subtext here. Oluyede's victory is not just a personal win. It's the PDP staking its claim in a state where it has struggled to assert dominance against an incumbent APC governor, Biodun Oyebanji, a leader whose performance has been widely recognized. But while Oluyede and his supporters are rallying, another thunderclap shaking the PDP's foundation in Ekiti. Coming in is former Governor Ayo Fayose, a PDP stalwart with deep roots within the state. Fayose has declared that the party is actually dead, calling its aspirants or addressing its aspirants as fooling themselves. In a move that has actually left political analysts talking and tongues wagging, he threw his support or weight behind Governor Oyebanji of the APC for re-election, citing the governor's outstanding performance and predicting an easy victory in 2026. Now, let's be clear, Fayose is still a PDP member, or would I call him a Wike of Ekiti State. He's not defecting now, but his words are carrying weight when a former governor and a major stakeholder publicly questions the viability of his own party. That's more than commentary here. It's political earthquake. Fayose said, and I quote, "The party is totally moribund. If there's hope, you can cling to it and bring life out of it, but there is no hope. The PDP is dead here in Ekiti." Those are strong words, a critique not just of the candidates, but of a very structured energy and relevance of the PDP in Ekiti State. So what does this mean for 2026 governorship contest? Dr. Wole Oluyede is trying to consolidate unity. He's actually or has started reconciliation efforts, notably visiting one or two aggrieved primary contestants, starting with Mrs. Fumilayo Ogun, describing her as a formidable politician and emphasizing party cohesion. Ogun herself responded positively, saying her actions are aimed at promoting peace and strengthening the PDP ahead of the 20th June 2026 election. But despite these efforts, Fayose's remarks introduce a psychological and strategic challenge. When a senior party figure endorses the opposition while claiming his own party is moribund, the signal to voters is mixed, at best demoralizing at worst. Now let's unpack the numbers here. APC's Oyebanji is the incumbent governor as we speak. Performance has been praised, projects commissioned, and voter perception is generally favorable. And for the PDP, the four aspirants, Oluyede, Funsho Ayeni, Funmilayo Ogun, and also Peter Obafemi. Thirdly, internal conflict and disunity risk fragmenting their voter base. Now, when you add all this in Fayose's public endorsement of Oyebanji, it doesn't just embolden the APC, it creates an uphill battle for PDP's unity and morale. For a political strategy perspective, PDP must act decisively. For Oluyede's leadership in managing intra-party disputes, reconciling aggrieved members, and rallying support from the national leadership, including Governor Makinde, could determine whether the party may survive or actually contest meaningfully next year, 2026. And let's not underestimate the symbolism here. Fayose's comments dismissing his own party's aspirants reveals a larger national trend that some states within the opposition parties feel marginalized, politically stagnant, and or unable to compete against incumbents with strong governance records. This isn't just Ekiti's problem, it's a test of PDP's national cohesion. If the party cannot project strength, discipline, and unity in a key southwest state, what does that signal about its readiness for 2027? But one must also acknowledge the counter-narrative here. Ekiti PDP leaders argue that the primary was credible, transparent, and representative of party members' will. Oluyede's victory, in their own view, is the people's choice, not just a procedural win, but a mandate for the party to reclaim relevance. Here's where political strategy comes into play. PDP must leverage the credibility of Oluyede's primary win to unify aspirants and aggrieved members. Secondly, Makinde and national leaders have a very key role, both in mediating disputes and projecting party cohesion ahead of 2026. Thirdly, messaging is critical because the electorate will actually watch not just the candidates, but how the parties handle internal democracy. And let's not ignore Oyebanji and the APC. A united opposition fractured by internal disputes is a gift to incumbents, as Fayose's endorsement of Oyebanji makes this abundantly clear. So where does this leave Ekiti heading to as they join the train to 2026? We have an incumbent governor praised for performance, seeking re-election. We have a major opposition party with credible aspirants, but struggling with internal conflict. And we have a former governor publicly questioning the very viability of his own party. In practical terms, the PDP must either consolidate its internal ranks now or risk allowing the APC to capitalize on its disunity. Oluyede's ability to reconcile rivals, rally support, and also demonstrate party strength will determine whether the PDP merely survives or competes with vigor in the coming election. And so, as Ekiti prepares to go to the polls ahead of 2026, June 20, one question looms large. Will the PDP rise above internal discord, presenting a united front capable of challenging an incumbent, or will divisions and public dissent be amplified by Fayose's remarks, cementing Oyebanji's path to an easier second term? Tonight on Viewpoint, we've navigated the stormy waters of Nigerian politics, from the controversies surrounding ex-oil minister Timipre Sylva and the EFCC's wanted notice to the historic reaffirmation of leadership of Anambra's governor and his INEC certificate of return to office, Chukwuma Soludo, and his deputy, a victory celebrated by Tinubu himself. Meanwhile, in Ekiti, the political battlefield has also been heating up. PDP appeals to Governor Makinde of Oyo State to stop alleged plots against their primary winner, while former Governor Fayose throws his weight behind APC's Oyebanji, dismissing PDP's aspirants and, as I quoted earlier, fooling themselves. What these stories tell us is simple. In Nigerian politics, power, perception, and strategy collide at every turn. I've been your host, Odiawa AI, and thanks for watching. The show has been Viewpoint.